Okay, I think we are live. Forgot to hit start streaming there button. It's a little different with the scheduled events as opposed to the live events. I'm still getting used to all this. So anyway, if you didn't see a minute ago, what happened is Rob was going to be, me and Rob actually both were going to be painting battle stations tonight, but some things came up at work for him at the last minute. And he, talked to me, and I said, "Yeah, I can take care of tonight." I'm in the middle of working on some swords and sorcery stuff, so I figured, hey, I'll show you what I'm doing, and you guys can take a look. And it's going to be kind of an interesting one, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to make sure that you've got sound, that you've got video, and everything. I want to make sure everything is working, and then we'll go down to the table, and we will take a look at things. Let's see. Yep, everything looks like it's, oh, if you see me looking up, I'm actually looking up at the screen because it's a little bit off of my camera angle's a bit different today. So, okay, that is great. Glad to see everything is working good. So, I am gonna go, and we are gonna get started. So. All right, so this is going to be interesting today because, like I said, Rob sort of came and talked to me here at the last moment. So I'm actually in the process. I have all my required painting done for the week, so far at least. As far as I've got the heroes done, which I can show you how that went, and I've got the mobs that we're going to need for our scenario done. And I'm in the process of painting up some of the other guys. And I'm actually in the process of trying to do some new things. You're kind of going to see some things that I'm trying for the first time, so there might be some me figuring some things out. I'm actually playing around with Zenithal priming and trying to see how that works. So you're gonna, I actually literally an hour ago primed 4 guys so we could work on them tonight, and we're gonna kind of see how they work. So you guys, if you ever wanted to see what it's like when I'm learning something new, that's what you're gonna get tonight. We are going to be kind of out there, and I might make some mistakes. I might not like some things. Some of the priming looks different. I tried a couple different techniques. I can kind of talk about what I did, and we're going to kind of give it a whirl. It's not a problem because it's just a primer. And I'm going to talk about what Zenithal priming is first, and we're going to get down to the table, and I'm going to show you some examples. So I hope everybody is looking forward to it tonight. I've got the chat up, so again, I'll be answering questions as well. So let's go down. I'm going to turn it around, and we're going to go down to the table, and we're going to see what I've got going on. All right. All right, so I got my focus and stuff here that I'll be doing manually because these minis, when I get them super close to the actual camera, I like to do it manually as opposed to letting it do it. So, all right, so what is Zenithal priming and why am I doing it? So, all right, so here's a couple of these big bad guys here from Swords and Sorcery here, all right? And I'm going to show you this first, just so we can talk about it, and we'll have some talk while I show you some other things. But what Zenithal priming is again, I think you can get a pretty good view here. Let me get a better, so I hope you can see what I'm talking about here. All right. What we do here is normally if you were to prime your miniature, I would probably have just primed him a nice base gray, right? And then that would have been done with it. And then what I would do is go with a base coat, shade it, bring the base coat back in, leaving some of the recesses with the shade in them, and then maybe go 1 to 2 layers of shading. I mean, if I'm trying to do, something a little bit nicer. And again, right now I've got some time that I'm not speed painting. So I'm trying to, work on my skills, work on some things to get better. So this is one that I wanted. And the reason is because theoretically, how this is supposed to work is you prime the whole thing black. And I don't know if I've got any here that I left that's, you can see there's deep blacks anymore. But maybe underneath his armor and his back there or something like that, you might be able to see the deep black. So you can on the base. So you prime the whole thing black to start off with. And then what you do is you set your miniature down, and you take, there's 2 ways to do this. I'm going to talk about the way I just did these. And what you do here is you set the miniature down, and then you take gray primer and you come at it at like 45-degree angles. Now, clearly not this close, but you know, with the camera zoomed in. And you come in 45-degree angles and you're doing arcs at 45-degree angles all the way around. So you're hitting them at 45. Then you let that dry. And then you come, at 90. 90 degree, all the way arc. So from like axe to axe, you would do a whole 90-degree arc and you would keep spinning the miniature kind of as you do it, doing that at that angle, you know, and everything in between. And then what you do is you take a white primer, and you do the white primer, and then you're doing it just like 45-degree angles, and again, you're spinning the miniature the whole time, trying to get that. And what you get then is you get a very nice gradient across the miniature with the highlights already done. I mean, you can see how deep and dark, like underneath the flaps of the armor have already gotten. You can see how his head is nice and bright on the top. And then I'm hoping you can see what I've got going on here. Again, I'm going to keep working with, you know, focusing, and there we go, kind of like that. And you can kind of see that the top of his head is much, much lighter than as you go down. So again, that's not just the light that's doing that. It's actually been done that way with the paint. So the thinking here then is now we've got these highlights. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our paints and we're going to make them very thin. So thin that the back layer shows through a bit. So then you think, so when we take our flesh tone, which I'm going to be using P3 paints, and I'm going to explain why in a minute, but I can take this P3 paint, and it's called Midland Flesh, and I'm going to dilute it to the point that it's transparent a bit. It's got some transparency to it, so that when I go over the skin, you can still see the highlighted shade in the back shine through. That's the idea. Now, the concept here would be super nice, because if that's the case, think of how quickly, I bumped the camera, how quickly you could then paint and get a very detailed paint job without having to spend a lot of time with the shading and stuff like that. So now I still think I have to highlight up a bit, because I didn't think I got quite what I was looking for the first time I did it. And I can show you the first guy I did last night just playing around. He came out okay, but I only did him in 2 stages. I only did the white and I did the black, and he didn't come out as nice as I liked. So I read some more on the internet, looked at some more stuff, and using the gray helps that transition from white to black a little bit smoother. So that's what we've done. So we'll be working with these 4 guys. I got 4 of them, and they're at varying different degrees of quality. I think, you can kind of see, some are better than others. Traditionally, normally the way this is done is it's done with an airbrush. I don't have an airbrush, so I was doing it with the spray can, which can be done. You just have to be very careful with your spray, and you have to make sure that your sprays are done in a way that you don't oversaturate things. So we're going to give this a shot. We're going to see how this works. Now, I did one yesterday, and this is him I did yesterday. And so here I did his skin, and I really would love to get more light on these guys. There we go. So I did him yesterday, and you can kind of see the highlights. You can see, especially in places, I'm going to get a brush to point with, especially in places like right in here, you can definitely see that the black is still showing through a bit. And again, on the tops here, again, it's definitely brighter, a little bit brighter, especially here. You can see the white coming through. I did go ahead and dilute some of the what's that stuff called? The shade. Reikland Flesh Shade. I did go ahead and bite the bullet and put the Reikland Flesh Shade on him, but I diluted almost 1-to-1 with water, so it's not as thick as you would normally see it. So, and I think it's okay. It's not bad. I think we can get better, so we're going to try to get better. Now, before we get into that, last meeting, I was painting the heroes. So I'm going to kind of show those off to see how those came out. So here is let's get some things in focus. So here's one of them that we were painting, and we were painting her up a couple weeks ago. There we go. So I think she came out pretty good. Nothing extravagant, did a little bit of gold work on the cloak and stuff, but she's like the sorceress. So I got her done. Okay. Some of the other guys, I'll show the guy that I did the worst. I'll show him last. Here's the elf. Again, So there's our elf that we did. He's the archer. And again, shaded up his cloak there a little bit. Okay, yep. Internet completely. Oh, come on. Internet completely crashed. I changed that. All right. I think we should be back. I apologize for that. Let me go in and tell everybody in the old one that, shoot. Yeah, the internet completely crashed out there on me. Like I said, we got a tropical storm come through earlier. It's not a tropical storm, it's over there in Tampa. And we had a lot of the rain showers coming over. So yeah, I know it's out of focus too, by the way, but and we had a lot of rain showers, so my internet just the whole thing crashed. So we're back. Like I said, sorry about that. So we're back. So let me make sure I've got everything fixed now. Yep, frames are looking good. Okay, all right. Make sure nobody is. All right, so let me get rid of that. All right, and we're back. So again, I apologize for that. Hopefully everybody comes back over here. So anyway, so here was the thief I we were looking at. Oops, where's my thumb? Here we go. Thief we were looking at. She looked pretty good. I thought she came out pretty well. And we've got little dwarf. He's kind of cool looking, so he was nice. And then I got a couple gremlins here that nobody cares about. And then I got the knight. The knight's not so great. I have such a hard time with white and light colors. They look so chalky. Now I'm thinking I've got a new process for that potentially to help out with that chalkiness, which I'm going to talk about some tonight. But you know, he just. You see the brush strokes too much. It means I'm putting it on too thick. It's just, white is just so hard for me. I really hate it. So anyway, so that's what we did. So let's get into tonight. Let's get some paint on some things. Let's pick up a guy here and let's get started so I can start talking about what I'm doing and why we're doing it. All right. So here's our guy. The light is gray. Yeah, the light is gray. Knocked my camera there as I was coming over there. Let me just let that back up. Okay. Yeah, the lightest gray would be gray would be better, and I probably should have done that. I get hung up on the picture sometimes, and I see how stark white he is, but I probably should have done that. Puma, that is a great question about the rules. We were supposed to play this on Sunday, but Janice, again, is not feeling really well. But when I talked to him on Friday, I was like, no problem, I'll get the rules taken care of. And I started looking at it, and that's a 50-something page rule book. It's a bit extensive. Luckily, there's a good number of playthrough videos. So what I like to do is I like to read, watch a video, and then read it again, so I kind of get the context, and it answers a lot of questions. But there are a good number of rules in this game, so... Rob has played it before, so luckily for me on that one, right? So we're going to see how this goes. All right, so what are we going to do? So the first thing I'm going to do is I need to get a base shade on this guy, and I am going to use this P3 Midland Flesh here, okay? But we're going to add something to it, because what I need to do is I need to make it a glaze, and I need to make it a glaze that's going to be very translucent. So what we're going to do is let's get some Midland Flesh here on my palette. All right, so let me shake this up. Get some flesh down here, Midland Flesh down here. Put it down in this little well down here, which is no biggie. Let's get a little bit in there. We don't need a whole lot. All right, yeah. All right, that's good. All right, so as you can see, Actually, you can't see because it's pretty out of focus. Let me get that into focus over here where we can see what I've got going on there. Okay, because I want to show you what we're going to do. All right, so here's our midland flesh, and as you can see right now, it's very opaque. You can't see through it. All right. Okay, so what I am going to add to it is called a wetting agent. Now, the wetting agent, you have to be careful because wetting agents are somewhat more toxic to use than any of our other chemicals. I am using, let me grab it here. I am using down here golden. The golden here it says someone says what? Yeah, the golden, and it says wetting agent. Okay, and I use this. What I do with this is I make a mixture in my bottle here of 20% wetting agent and 80% water. And then I put that in my dropper bottle, okay? So there's the thing. It's slightly toxic, so I cannot put this in my mouth, so no brush licking for me tonight. And what I normally do is when I get done with this, I will change out my water and everything too. So, but we're going to use this because it's going to really lower the surface tension, but it's not going to kill my pigments. So I'm going to put in probably 3 drops. We'll try 3, and we'll see how that looks. So I put 3 drops of that in, and we're going to mix this up. And we're trying to form a glaze. So you can see where we started right here, where it was completely translucent. You couldn't see through it at all. And now you're getting to the point where you can start to see through it there. And you see when I put it down, you can start to see through it. It's much thinner. I'm actually going to go a little bit thinner on this. Again, I'm still working on this process. Let's try 2 more drops. All right, so we're making a nice glaze. I like the P3 paints a lot because they're liquid pigments that make up the colorant. And because of that, as I dilute them, I don't lose strength of my paint. On the other paints, the problem you can run into is that whenever you use your pigment, you put your paints in liquid, specifically water, they could start to lose strength, and it almost looks like you're pushing water around. They get too dilute. These P3 paints they're because of how they're made, they're not that way. So now we're starting to get, there you go, you can start to see now a lot more translucent, and that's what we want because we need that base layer to show through. So let's just start with that. Let's see how that works, all right? So let me get that brush a little cleaner than that. So we'll start with this, and again, like I said, the object here is that we want the paints to show through. I want the pigment, the primer that's behind it, we want that to show through onto the, through the midland flesh here. All right, so I've got my brush, and again, we talked about how we use these watercolor brushes, and I don't know if you can see it, but it just sucks that very dilute pigment and paint right up into the brush there, which is really, really nice. So, all right, so let's back this over. All right, let's get him back in focus. All right, so let's take a look and see what we can do here. All right, let's see, let's get around here. All right. And as you can see, it's a very thin layer. It's supposed to be thin. That's the object here. Now, the tricky part with this though, is we have to be fairly neat. Where normally we could not have to worry about being neat and stuff like that because we're going to go over it later. The darker colors would go over it later. Here we have to be careful with that because because of the fact that we want the base coat to show through, the primer to show through, we're not going to be able to touch up that. So we really have, as you start to do some of these different techniques, they're a little less forgiving than our other techniques that we would otherwise use. So again, and you can clearly see here that this base coat is shining right through. The primer there is shining right through our base coat. Oh, let me slide over. All right. So I think again, so I think we're going to probably have to go over him with this with more than one coat. But like I said, we're going to keep at it. All right, so just getting our flesh on this guy. Now, the other thing with the wetting agent there is that it will increase the drying time a bit because again, it makes the paints a little bit more. It makes them a little bit more wet. So because that's what it does, it's going to make them dry a little bit slower. So you can't hop on your a second coat or move on to your highlights as quickly as you could if you were doing it with just a regular, just regular painting, with the regular acrylics. So it's okay. We're going to be painting his face. So this is what we're trying to do. And again, it looks kind of rough now, but remember, it's going to dry. And again, as it dries, it leaves the paint behind there. So some of these places where it's pooled a bit, I'm going to pull them back down a bit, but they're gonna pull themselves back out. But again, I'm being very careful not to, come on, pop these bubbles. It's one of the things, again, what the wetting agent does is it makes the surface tension lower on your paints. So what's surface tension? Well, surface tension is, yep, there we go. What the wetting agent does is it's going to lower the surface tension of your paints, which means that they are going to flow a whole lot more than they would normal, like even more than water. Again, it's designed to break the surface tension. What is surface tension? Surface tension is, if you look at a drop of water, and as soon as I get done with him, I'll give you a good illustration, and I can show you exactly what, I can do it now. Let this dry for a bit. Let me show you exactly why we use what we use. And I can show you a great example of this. I've never done this before, so if this experiment fails miserably live, well, that's the joys of going live, right? All right, this is just water. Okay, I'm gonna put a drop of water in this. Okay, and bingo. Please tell me you can see this. Okay, you can. Let's see if we can. All right, so you can, again, it's water. Let's do it here. Let's do it on the back of the blue here. I wonder if I can do it here better. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. All right, so you see the droplet here. Let me, hold on, while I'm doing this, I don't want my brush to, let me wash out my brush here while I'm doing this. All right, so you can see the droplet there and how it's stuck up and it's kind of bubbled up like that. Okay, high surface tension. Surface tension is what's keeping that bubble sitting there, okay? So if I take some of the wetting agent and let me put a bubble right beside it, and so you can see side by side what we're talking about here. So you can see we've got two bubbles, and even if I take my brush and I poke at this, it's not gonna, it sits there. It's high surface tension. I can't pop that bubble. So I'm gonna take some of my wetting agent and I'm gonna put it on the bubble here right beside it. Okay, instantaneously, you saw it flatten out a bit. And then if I put another drop in, boop, and if I take my brush and I poke at it, you see it's flat. So now you see it's spreading out. I mean, it's actually filling up my whole little square right here. So you can see how it's filling up, okay? The surface tension on the water has now broken. Whereas over here, it's still nice, thick bubble, can't move it. Now, I've got some on my brush, so it's starting to get a little bit in there. But this is now flat, and you can draw this out and draw this out without any issues whatsoever. And again, you can see that. Hopefully you can see that. Whereas with this bubble, I can't. If I try to draw it out, you can see how it gets runny, and it doesn't. And I've got some on my brush, so it started to wear off there. But so that's what the wetting agent does. Matte medium doesn't. What matte medium does is matte medium dilute your normal Vallejos, P3s work too, Vallejos, Games Workshop, Army Painters. Those paints are dispersions. Remember, dispersions mean, when I'm talking dispersion, think, I used to live in the South, sweet tea. When you take sugar and you put so much sugar in your sweet tea that you start to see the sugar kind of floating around, that's kind of like the idea of a dispersion. The dyes and the pigments that are in these GW, again, my minor dropper bottles, but in these GW paints, they are a solid. They are a solid, and they are dispersed, and you've got lots and lots of millions of little solid particles floating around, and that what becomes your paint. Therefore, if you put too much water in your GW paint and try to dilute it to a glaze consistency like this, if you try to do this with just water, it's not, what's going to happen is you're going to dilute your color. And your color is going to become completely diluted to the point where you're going to pick it up and you're going to get particles. And when you put it down on the model, it turns into like a little puddle of water with color all around it. Okay? So that's what happens to it. So you can use matte medium, however, which is basically think of matte medium like a colorless paint. So matte medium I can use and I can dilute Games Workshop, Vallejo, Army Painter paints to get to a glaze type consistency, but I can't use water purely. Yes, Painting Chemistry 101. I used to be a color scientist for about 5-6 years, and then all through school. So a lot of this stuff with dyeing and stuff like that, I do have some background in. So yeah, I can definitely answer any questions that you might have. And again, here's something cool. It's unfortunate you can't see everything all the time there, but you might be able to see it there. You can see the white right there by the chain. If you remember a minute ago, I was right up against that chain, but remember, as paint dries, it shrinks. It shrinks. So even though I had just painted that and it wasn't white when I left it, the paint has shrunk away from it a bit. So I have to kind of come back over it again. And I'm going to do a second coat. Again, when we start to get into a bit more, I won't say advanced, because I'm not an advanced painter. I'm just doing it a little bit, to a little bit different level of quality. And when you start to get into that, you're going to get into layering. Because again, we can build up color and build up highlights by going with the same color over it again. Okay, because again, what's going to happen with our Zenithal primed areas is the more we go over this with this paint, the less of the back coat we're going to see, which is good and bad. Depends on how well. Again, because I know being's an expert in Zenithal priming because I'm doing it for the first time here. Sometimes if I don't like it, I'm just going to go over it and then just do my normal highlighting as usual on top of it. But with the wetting agent, we have to be careful because it is slightly poisonous. So I guess you can't really be slightly poisonous, but you have to just exercise precautions when you're using it. I'm trying to keep everything in focus here. I apologize. But so again, so you can see our face is kind of coming out nice there. And I'm going to kind of go over them again just a little bit here. I want to get a little bit more color. Foundation, come away. And so what I'm doing is I touch him on the face, pull some of that paint up, and I'll drop it on his back here, which is a place that needs to get painted anyway. So I'll drop it on the back, and I'll come back over to the front. My brush pulls it right off of his face. Wicks right up these brushes. And again, there was a question the last time we painted together why I use watercolor brushes, and now you see why we use watercolor brushes, because we want that wicking action. Because I'm using an acrylic paint by the definition of the molecules of what makes up acrylic, but it is in no way the consistency of what you would consider an acrylic paint, So this is definitely much lighter than that. And again, You have to be careful. Sometimes you start to get, your paint can get a little out of control. And that's the hard part when you start to do with painting like this, is you've learned to paint one way, where your paint moves the way you think it, it's not as sensitive to move, it's not as sensitive, and now it's going to become a lot more sensitive because smaller things, smaller brush strokes move paint farther now. So you have to almost learn to control your brushes all over again. So not completely. I mean, let's it's not starting from scratch again, but again, it's not. It is trickier. It is a different type of painting, and it takes longer, which is okay, because in the end, it looks nice. You get to. Again, I like to take time on some of my paint jobs. Again, I like the art of painting as well, and I think that we try to get as much stuff out because everybody wants to see it. So every once in a while, it's important for me personally that I take time and I kind of keep some of the art still in my painting, because I enjoy it. I enjoy the art. I enjoy it's a creative expression that we get to have when we paint, and that's why I like to. Why I'm so fascinated right now with flesh, because what I want to do is one of the ultimate ways to give your miniatures life is going to be by making expressive faces and stuff like that. And I want to be able to give my models an expression. Now, when you see them, I want them, them to be thinking something, and you're like, wonder what they're thinking and stuff like that. So, but that's not good. It's too far back there. Sometimes, again, we're dealing with thin layers, so if I can get it in there. Oh, I know what I can do. We're dealing with thin layers. I got a paintbrush, the back of my paintbrush in my mouth, so don't worry. I can come in with this other brush and kind of get it off a little bit. Yeah, somewhat cleaned it. So, all right. So yep, got a little bit of that, touched it a little bit there. So as you can see, again, as we've gone through the different things here, we can see this has 2 layers on it up in here. This has one that's still drying. So again, I sort of can see it, but I could definitely see in here. I can definitely see the darks, but man, I think I still have to be somewhat selective. For some apparent reason, my hand wants to shake right now. I think I have to be somewhat selective on still maybe painting just the tops of some of these muscles, maybe. I don't know. Like, I can't see getting away from the washes on this. I mean, yeah, I see some detail, Dutch, need to start buying paint. No, yeah, what I do with paint, normally I go to Hobby Lobby a ton. They have Vallejo paint. So whenever I'm at Hobby Lobby, I'll look over the paint section and I'll buy 1 or 2. From either only $2.99. So I'll pick up 1 or 2 and then just, kind of have that. Quickly, another thing, very important, okay, my brush. When you're using paints that are thinner, it's going to wick up the brush much, much, much more than a normal paint. So you have to wash more often, or you're going to get that stuck in the furrow there. So I have to rinse my brush more often than I don't, but it's fine because it comes out super easy. It's just make sure you do that, because you do not want to get that paint drying up in there, because that's a pain. Yes, Puma, it is a great technique for wet blending, because again, we have super thin paints, which again, when I do wet blending, I actually have models. I'm actually trying to do 2-brush blending right now, but same idea-ish. But yes, because the wetting agent, again, keeps you can actually just watch it and it just sucks it right up the model. The wetting agent keeps surface tension down. This is too wet. So because of that, it allows me to keep the paints wet longer. So again, when you bring in that second color to do the 2-brush blending, it actually, this is ridiculous. It actually is good. Sometimes it's hard to talk and paint, because it's funny, sometimes when I'm painting stuff that's really low like that, or tight in there, I actually hold my breath. because there's a couple times when you're painting on something, and you want to get it in there, I have to actually hold my breath because I don't want my body to even move. Again, I do that a lot of times when I'm highlighting some things, but let me try it again. I'm trying to get this in focus a bit better sometimes. And again, I'm not looking at the screen a ton sometimes, so I'm looking at the chat a lot, but on the feed. So if I get something out of focus, somebody shout at me and say, "Hey, get this back in focus. We want to see what you're doing," because it's no fun to watch me paint a blurry model. It's hard to. I envy those guys, the guys that paint a lot, and then it's their, they got channels for YouTube that all they do is paint. They get such good video, but I've found out that the reason they can do that is they are. I have rarely seen a lot of people paint live with good painting video, and I think, and again, when I do my recorded stuff and I use my DSLR camera, I get a lot better resolution than I can on my 1080p webcam. I can get a better resolution. I'm going to have to fix those pants or boots because I'm getting all over them. So there we go. It's kind of cool. Kind of see some, back it up. You kind of see some depth of shade. I've been touching his head. Get your head painted again. Kind of see some depth there. But as you can see, guys, it's long. I mean, again, when we get into when we get into painting like this, just be in it for the long haul, and be patient. Patient. I cannot stress that enough. And that's why what I do. I like to do is paint only what I need for what we're going to be showing that week, and then I can take time for the next week and I can paint something else. Glare. Yeah. Yep, Dutch, I hear you on that. In fact, I did the same thing with brushes. I just put an order in this morning. I went and got some more Rosemary and Company. The brushes that I use are Rosemary and Company, and I just went and got. I really only needed like 2, but where I get them from in England, in London, shipping is $17, and I'm buying $4 brushes. I'm like, I'm not going to buy one brush, so at least try to make my brush order worth it for my shipping. So yeah, I hear you. I get paints pretty regularly, but yeah, every once in a while I go by the Games Workshop store and I'll pick up a paint that I don't have, but I've got a pretty good collection. But man, I'm telling you, I love these P3 paints. It's not a paint that I've heard a lot about. There's not a lot of guys that I hear that use them, but man, do I really like them, especially when I can dilute them with water on some of the other things that I do, 2-brush blending and just diluting them in general with water. And I if you guys have ever seen, Miniature Market sells. They're from Privateer Press, and the Miniature Market has them in stock. And you can actually get them fairly cheap too, because I think they've got these boxes where you can get 6 colors, and I think it's 6 colors for like $10 or $15, something like that. And it comes in a whole box. But the paints are so much, they're nice, they're big. It doesn't tell me how big it is, but it's big. It's probably the same size as the Games Workshop. I don't know. It's big. Look at my Mini. It's bigger than my Mini. So, I like these. P3. Forma P3 by Reaper. They're by Privateer Press. They're cool. I like them. I'm starting to find different paints from different companies that I like more. Like, I love metallics from Vallejo. The Games Workshop ones, they're okay, but man, those ones from Vallejo, I really love them. And I think that they're really good. So I like them. Again, clearly the shades from Games Workshop cannot be beaten. They make some phenomenal shades. The Army Painter ones aren't bad. They're not bad. They're next up. But I mean, but the Games Workshop just has so many great ones. I rely on them a lot. But again, all right. So he's pretty. We're gonna roll with that for a minute. But you can see. So here's the difference in essence. I mean, these both have. So the guy I did yesterday, there he is. that I went and did. I did him with the Reichland flesh shade over top of it, and with this one, yeah, I don't have the Reichland flesh shade. I don't know, you know, you can clearly see better muscle definition in this guy right here. I don't know. Hey, Sith Knight. All right, so that's that guy. We'll come to another guy here. Yeah, P3s are good. The army painters aren't bad either. I need more paint. Let me get more paint in here. I have a wet palette that I use too, but right now I'm just using the. Yeah, the Nathaniel, you're definitely right on the citadels. I end up, well, you've seen my video. If you haven't, you can check it out on the channel where I dilute, because I put my citadels, my GWs, in these little bottles, but I dilute them with Flow Aid before I even put them in the bottle, because they're just too thick and they're too saturated. So the Flow Aid is very much like matte medium. It's kind of, but it's honestly, I think it's like the wetting agent, but it makes everything move, and it keeps them from coming out of solution and stuff too. So I like it. So we're gonna come in here and put some more of our. I gotta get more paint in here. So yeah, you never want to use your paint once it starts drying out. So. Yep, Dennis, I would recommend them. Get a couple. You know, hey, if you 2, 3, 4. Sorry, just weighing out my stuff here. I would just get a couple of them. You know, they're acrylic paints. I like them. I think they're good. I've seen a couple of exceptionally good painters who have done really nice paint jobs with them. So, you know, part of me, you know, I come back to the tools tools are the tools. You know, but the artist is still, you got to have skill. You know, so I'm trying to develop. I've got good tools. I think I've got better tools than I do skill at this moment. But but I like them. I have probably 12 or 15 of them. Their metallics I think are also pretty good. Like I've got, this is their gold. I got their gold right here, and I think it's a pretty nice gold. Well, that looks kind of crusty and stuff, but it's not really. You know, it's a nice gold. It's a pretty cool one. And I've got their another one that I got one of their silvers. It came in one of the boxes. I didn't really need them, but they're pretty nice. Pretty nice little silvers though. Oh, with being colorblind, can't tell what Citadel bottles hold. Yes. With that is very difficult to paint then, I would imagine. Yeah, I guess one of the things to do is, if you ever need, you know, put in the channel, put in there, or, you know, shoot Rob an email and ask us the paints, the exact paints that we're using, or ask us a similar paint and we can recommend it to tell you what we're doing, so the names might help you. Another thing I can show you guys while I'm changing over models here, there's an app that I use on my phone. Again, I found it the other day. Not the other day. It's called Paint Rack. Let me see if I can. Paint Rack. It's a cool little app, and it's got my library. I've got all my paints in it, and you just and it's got all the. It's kept up to date. Let me try to get this so that you can see this without it being. And it's got all the different paints in it that you can get. So so there's my library of all my paints, and it's my Citadels, my P3s, and so it colors it. It colors it in solid, like that when I've got it. And then what you can do is you can go to Color Tools, and then I can say, okay, Ogre and Camo. And then, now I haven't talked a lot about this, but if you guys want to hear about color theory, you can always ask. But complementary color, so again, opposite green is going to be purple. So it tells you what the complementary color. So if you look at Ogre Camo is my Citadel paint that I chose. It tells me in the Citadel range what is my complementary color. I could slide it over and say, there's my P3 complementary color. It tells you what it is, Reaper, Vallejo, all the different paints. And then it tells you down there what's my analogous color. So it kind of tells me the ones around it in the color wheel. There's my triads. And then down at the bottom here, it says, okay, Ogre Camo, but I don't have Ogre Camo. Who's got the closest thing? So if I only have Vallejo, I can click on that and say, okay, well, if you could go get Vallejo lime green, that's the closest Vallejo color to it. And again, it's got all the different ones, which is kind of neat. So it's a pretty neat little app. I think it's free. I paid for it because the other thing that it lets me do is I can save sets because I forget what I've done sometimes. So it lets me save, like I did I do my bolt action stuff. So okay, so like there's my shoes, so I can remember, and there's my gun, my helmet, so I can put all my stuff in there. And so even when I go to my skin, this is back when I was painting a little bit more detailed. Okay, add Lamian medium to the Cadian flesh tone, then go over all the skin, do the second coat only in the tops, and then add a wash at a 1-to-1 water. And then so again, it tells me all of my things that I would need. So it's a really cool app. They have it for Android and for iOS, and it's really nice. I have it with me all the time when I'm at the store, so I can always see what colors I'm missing. And again, it's got literally every single paint you could ever think of. And it's even got a cool thing when you add a paint to your library, you actually can just scan in. You could take like I know I haven't put my P3s in lately. So you can take your app here. You can take your app. This is like, I don't know if I can get it back far enough to scan it. There you go. So see, I could scan it in, and it adds it automatically. See, it sees exactly what the paint is, and then it adds it into your list. So if you're at the store, you can add that all in and stuff like that. So it's really convenient because once you get so many paints, you forget what paints you even have. So this way I can always make notes, and I've got a nice little app. And again, it's called Paint Tools, or Paint Track. Did I say Paint Tools? It's called, what did I call it? Paint Rack. Paint Rack. Sorry, thank you. I can do that. Wild Boy, you can do that, and I've got those too. I mean, I've got I'm not selective. Again, I've got like my folk art purple paint here. The tricky part is it's so thick for what I want to do that I definitely have them, and I use them at times, but I have to dilute them a lot because again, I like to paint in layers, and to do that, I need my paints thin. So I have to use a lot of stuff to pull them down, and again, eventually I get lazy, and I like having the paints that are already thinned down to a good degree, so that I don't have to do it as much. So I can do my own video on that on the app. I thought about. I had a whole series planned I was going to try to do about some more of the advanced stuff, and then Rob said he was going to do his Painting 101. Ooh, wow, that's really thick. I have to pull that off. That's okay. His Painting 101 videos again. I don't want to conflict my, I don't want to saturate the market with saturate the channel with so much painting tutorials. So I think instead of doing the series on it, I think what I'll end up doing is a maybe just a quick tips, like a 5-minute video. Man, I gotta get some of this paint off this dude's face. This might be too thick still. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just, working on the. Gotta get this guy. He's kind of awfully thick on the face. Anyway, there we go. I might do some quick tip videos. Like a 5-minute video, real fast. And then just so we can kind of just a couple topics out there. Puma, that's exactly what I do that as well. Now I use the app, but I used to do that a lot. I would just kind of write it down. The only time it's been helpful for me is the impromptu visits. And I don't, I'm over. The kids and the wife. My wife are looking at
looking at other crafts or something. I'm just hanging out in the paint aisle, sometimes looking around saying, hey, I need another yellow. What yellows do I have? And then I just kind of have it. But again, you're right. You can easily do it with just a list with pen and paper. It's just, getting fancier. Oh, it's not available in Canada. Why would it not be available in Canada? That's not good. I don't know why. But I just found, I can't remember how I found it. Somebody had mentioned it online, I think, or something, and I found it. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. I use it a lot for the color tools, mostly, to see. I have a ton of, I got spreadsheets and stuff, all kinds of stuff that tell me if I want to go from one paint company to the next, what color is the closest. And for anybody who knows color and how color works, it gives you a number, a delta E number, which tells me how visibly different it's going to be from the other color. So I can tell based on that number if visually it's going to be able to be perceptible that it's even different, which is helpful. And again, even if it is, depending on what my use is, I'm not always worried about it, because again, if I'm using it as like a lot of times I need an olive green and I needed to cut my flesh shade. So if I'm only going with a 50-50, I don't really care if it's not a perfect match to what I'm looking for. If it's as long as it's close, it's going to give me the same effect. So that's a cool little app. Again, I use it for a couple of different things. Again, I also make the lists a lot too, because sometimes, again, as things change, I was working on those orc boys for Warhammer for a while there, and then we had to change up because something else came up. The Warhammer 40K was coming out, and we were asked by Miniature Market, to help out with the launch. So I had to kind of move from the Orc Boys over to the Space Marines, or the Chaos guys. So when I did that, I made a list on my phone of that, so I could remember when I come back to it how I was painting that. So it's helpful. But the color theory stuff is fun. I mean, again, I really like. I haven't worked in the field in a while, but I still always keep up with it, and I love talking to other people about it, because I actually know it. So we talk about analogous colors, and if you don't, and one of the things I can definitely recommend to you, if you do not have a cheap color wheel, and don't go nutso with it, it needs to only really be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 sections. A 12-section color wheel. I would print it off the internet if I were you. I mean, again, now mine's got water on it and stuff like that, but something like that. Something, that's a good thing to have, because when you start looking at colors and what colors to use on your model, there's going to be some models that you're going to see that people are going to do, and you're going to be like, you know what? Something about that just works. And what works and what that something is the palette that they chose. You don't see people who do really, really great models. Like, you don't see them oftentimes use, for instance, bright greens and bright reds at the same time. If they do, it's for highlight purposes, and your eye is immediately drawn to it because they're analogous colors on a color wheel. So because of that, they are stark opposites of each other. So your eyes are like muscles, like every other muscle in your body. So if you get them fatigued, they immediately want to relax. And with color, the way they relax is they see the other. All right. I hate Florida. We've got storms all over right now, and it is just killing me right now. So I do apologize for this. It seems like every once in a while my technology just decides to die. But no, the internet just went completely out. Everything flashed. So I was texting Leland there just to let him know that I'm coming back. So hopefully you guys can see it. So let me get everything pulled back up. We're gonna pull this to an end here real quick. And yeah, we are still just wanting to
to lag out. I'm trying to pull the. Actually, I can do it on my phone. Let me see if it's back up. And I can check it because of the fact that I've got a cell signal. Go on YouTube and I can actually see if it's back. Yes, okay. All right, oops. Let me. All right. Ooh, turn that down. Okay, so I can't pull that up, but I can look at it on my phone. So, all right, guys. So sorry about that. Someone let me know where it died, so I'll finish my thoughts there, and then I can then drop back on. Leland will do some magic, and he'll put everything back into one nice video, and we will kind of get that tied up there. So I do apologize. Again, this is the fun part about going live, though. You know. So I'm trying to. There we go. Okay. All right. So lost a couple people there. So all right. So again, I probably was talking about the color. Leland, let me know where I was, and then I'll get that finished up. And we can kind of get the my paint's dried out. So this was rough today. This was rough today. But you know, we have days like this. And I hope you guys liked it. I hope you guys learned some things about it. I mean, that's really my goal, is that you learn, and that you can take some of these things and some of these techniques and go back. Yeah, oh, the color wheel, right. Okay, so, right, I would recommend you definitely get yourself a hold of a color wheel, because what you'll notice on the color wheel is that the colors that are beside each other, they're okay. The colors that are opposite each other, they're all right to add highlights. But if you use the colors that are opposite each other, they will really stand out. And almost to the point where they'll clash on your model. So models that look, if you go by and look at some, go on Cool Mini or Not's website, they have a great gallery where they show models and stuff like that. If you go on there and you look, you'll see models that, and you wonder, what makes this model look so appealing? You can't put your finger on it. And I bet you that's what it's going to be. Look at the color scheme that they used, that the person who painted it used, and then look at a color wheel, and you'll notice people use things called triads, which are the one color like red, and then I'll go to the opposite color from red is green, but I'm not going to use green. I'm going to use the two equal distance apart from green. So a triad would be like red, blue, and yellow. But that's an easy one, but let's say purple. So purple would be purple, orange, and green. So use a triad like that. And again, that helps with your models and stuff like that. And again, you'll see a difference. And again, so you'd like to plan out your color schemes a little bit before you go. And again, you'll notice it. It's small things like that. But again, it's one of those things I'll probably try to do a video on one of these days. I'd love to do a quick video on basics of color theory and color and why we do it and what it's about, just so that you have the knowledge. And again, it's nothing that you need. You can be a fine painter without it, but every little bit helps. That's what I think. So let's see, any comments there? All right. So guys, we have had a rough night with technology tonight, but that's kind of how my day goes every once in a while with tech. But I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you guys learned some stuff from it. Again, we can do some. I'll do some more videos here coming up. I think Rob and I are going to paint with each other. I think we're painting battle stations on Wednesday now. So we'll paint that on Wednesday, and then on Friday, tomorrow. Tomorrow is the silent auction games reveal. So make sure you guys check out the stream tomorrow. I'll be over at Rob's, and we'll be revealing the games that are going to be in the silent auction. That's going to be great. I've been going through his garage, which is like a museum of games. So we picked out a bunch of great games for that. I think you're really going to enjoy that. So come by and check that out tomorrow.
On Wednesday, we're going to be painting battle stations, I think, is what he's got right now. Thursday, we're off. Nope, Thursday he's going to be painting Adrenaline. And then on Friday, I believe, we play Swords and Sorcery. So we'll be playing this game on Friday. That's what I know right now. But, you know, with both of us, you know, Rob and I both work. So every once in a while, things happen. And we got to be able to roll with the punches, you know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tonight. I hope you guys come by and check out the other streams on the channel. I'm going to keep working on these guys. And when I get them done, I'll kind of put them up online. Maybe I'll put either the pictures in the BGG form, or I will just have another video and just kind of show off what we did and how they worked and things I liked and things I don't like about this. But anyway, if you're interested in Zenithal priming, check it out. And if there's any other topics you'd guys like to talk about, I know you guys want to talk about two-brush blend.
Connected back up. I have to end this now, because if I don't end this now, my house might just erupt here. So, guys, I want to thank you guys for stopping by tonight. I'm going to turn it around, maybe talk to you a little bit there, see what this looks like. It's going to look horrid. I need OBS. Had a great time tonight. Hope you guys did too, and I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for sticking with me.